Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show. Home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros.
Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show Action Edition, where we feature feedback from you, our listeners. I'm here with my old buddy Larry. Larry, what's been going on?
John, it's been just more thrilling times in the handyman business. Been busy. Wanted to just kind of relate. This actually plays. You'll understand when I say this, but I was out doing a job the other day, and welcome to living in North Georgia, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't like the weather, just wait a few hours. I was out. I started off this job. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't really late or early in the morning. Started out in jeans, right? Because it was 50. It was 50 degrees at 9 o'clock in the morning, and started this job, and about halfway through the day, I'm like, why am I sweating? I look at the temperature. It's 85 out, and I'm like, okay, switching to shorts, and it ended up being about 87 that day. That's all one day. That's really common in North Georgia. But the reason that I tell that story is it has to do with, we got an email from Catherine, and Catherine asked us a question. She said, what do I need to check when I switch from heat to AC, right? So it's a timely thing. I thought it was pretty good. So John, let's talk about switching from heat to AC. Yeah,
because we have turned a corner here. It's getting hot.
Finally.
And I think the rest of the country is going to be experiencing this too. I know they've been kind of in the cool zone there, a little unusual for this time, but like you said, just wait a little bit and you're going to get it. But yes, we're switching from heat to AC. It's more than just flipping the thermostat from heat to cool.
Well, not really, but
well,
but there's some things you should do, right?
That's what we're talking about here, right? And that is, there's more to it than just that. So, we're talking about actually the whole house. Okay, you are going to flip that thing over, but when you're doing that, what are we doing? What are we doing, Larry? We're talking about, a lot of people will, have ceiling fans in their home.
Yep. And a lot of, especially here in the greater Atlanta area, everybody's got a ceiling fan, right?
Everybody's got them everywhere, and they're just, and they're reversible, right?
They're reversible. That's right. And if you didn't switch it over in the spring, in the fall, from the heat side over to the AC side, maybe it's time to just leave it alone. But understanding that fans are reversible, in the wintertime, generally, you want the air pushing up towards the ceiling, right? So the fan blades, the edge that grabs, it needs to be pointed down, and it needs to be spinning into that edge. And then in the summertime, you want to reverse them, so the air is actually pushing down. Is that correct, John?
Yeah.
So at this time of year, as we switch over, and sometimes people do this and sometimes people don't, but you want to switch it so the air is actually pushing down. And I do want to caution this, right, John? When you do actually do the switch, number one, turn the power off to your fan. Don't try to do it while the fan is running. Not a good idea.
Yeah, not a good idea.
Second thing to do is, before you actually flip the switch and turn the power back on, generally pretty good idea to clean your fan blades off.
It's a good time to do it. Because, those things are running. In my case, I don't even know if they're getting dirty unless you turn them off sometimes. And it's like, what in the heck?
And then you turn them over, and what happens? It sprays that freaking lint junk all over the house, all over what's underneath it, right?
That's when you scour away. I didn't do it.
The cat did it. It's the cat's fault. Not anything against cats, folks, but
But that's one part of it, of just getting your house prepared, as we go from heat to AC.
Yeah. Second thing on that one is filters, right? So check your HVAC filter.
Absolutely.
And especially here in Atlanta, I'm going to say anywhere where you have a lot of pollen, and particularly here in Atlanta, we have tons of pine pollen, so it's this fine yellow dust that's all over everything. If pollen season's over, it's probably time to change your HVAC filter anyway, because it's full of pollen, if the air is moving through your house. So good time to change and check your filters, right, in that sense. Just one of those things that you need to do. John, there's another thing that I just thought of. It's a pretty good time to do a quick check on all your doors and window seals too, right? So walk around your house and put your hand up, and if it's hot outside and you can feel heat coming through the seals on the doors and the windows, might be time for a little action there too.
And, that's a great point, because actually when it's cool out and in the night, there might be a time to kind of just it's easier to feel the cool than it is the heat.
Yep.
And that might be a good time right now to do that, because don't fool yourself that the heat is just coming in through all that during the summer.
Yeah.
So it's a good time to check that, and like you said, replace those seals around the doors. We've talked about it before.
Yep.
It's cheap. It's quick. And get it done.
And it saves you money as well, right? So
absolutely,
time, money, and aggravation. And then one other thing we talked about, John, and this is funny. I'm going to use this garage door analogy. So because I got called out on a job, right, and their garage door had stopped working, and so they wanted me to replace their garage door apparatus to do it, right? So the first thing I do is I grab the remote, I flip the remote off, I peel the batteries back, and I go, "Have you changed the batteries?" And they looked at me and go, "Nope." I was like, so I popped 2 AA's out. I popped 2 in.
Right.
Problem solved. Well, the same thing happens in most thermostats, right? Now, if it's a wired thermostat, not necessarily, but if you have a remote thermostat that has batteries, and almost all of modern ones.
All those new ones do.
Yep. All the new ones do. Check your batteries. Not a bad idea to check them and maybe change them if you need to.
Absolutely. That's going to save you a whole lot. And that is probably one of the biggest service calls from, a lot of times from HVAC, is that nothing comes on.
Yeah,
and
it doesn't
all it
come
is
on.
Is the batteries.
And you just spent $150 to change your batteries, right?
So I was just going to say that.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
So, saving time, money, and aggravation. Plus there's that aggravation factor, because it's stressful, especially when it's 100. Well, it's 90 out and you want your AC on, right?
That's right.
At least here in the South. I suppose when we lived in the North, it was the other way around with heat. It's 20 out and you want your heat on. Same deal. So let's just talk about HVAC for just a quick minute, John, and we are eventually going to get somebody on here to talk HVAC that's a true pro. My experience with HVAC comes from being in the vending business, and so I was in the vending business, folks, if you didn't know, for quite a long time. So we dealt with refrigeration, and the difference between HVAC and refrigeration is not really a whole lot, other than we didn't have a heat side, but we had the refrigeration side. And the one thing that I came to learn about HVAC is that it's really hard to do DIY projects on your HVAC. Now, not everything, there's things you can do, but when it comes to a general service, unless you have the gauges and you know what you're looking at, you can run into some problems. You agree with that, John?
That's correct. Don't go places you shouldn't be going. Let's just put it that way. I think we're headed to getting some regular service or a checkup on your systems if you're not capable of doing it yourself. Don't open that system, and don't just have a professional come out and take care of it.
Yeah, it's
because
one of those.
I was going to say, Larry, that it, like you were alluding to before. I mean, you want to make sure that your air conditioning and your units are working. Okay, so that when it becomes 90 degrees or more, and it's really, really uncomfortable in your house, and the AC goes out, it's going to make for a miserable night.
Right. And all I was going to add that this is an area where somebody that does this stuff all day long, there's I think 3 basic ideas. Number one, they have the knowledge, right? So they see these things all day long, and they do it all week long, and they really understand the ins and outs. Like, so sometimes there's problems that you don't even realize are going on in your systems. There's a cycle problem, or there's all kinds of there's a million different things. And eventually, like I said, we're going to get somebody on to talk HVAC, but there's a specialized knowledge, we'll call it, where it's very, very specific and they understand a lot of things. Part of that specialized knowledge is understanding what type of refrigerant you have. And currently, there's probably 5 or 6, maybe more. And again, there's probably more different types of refrigerant, and they all have these very different capacities and qualifications, and they're different. They all work in a different way. And then the third thing that goes along with that is that there's really a lot of specialized tools. I mean, if you don't have the right gauges to gauge the pressures and things on there, because each of the different coolant types has a different gauge.
That's right.
They're not universal, right? So you can't just go down, you don't go down and buy one set of gauges where you're going to spend a certain amount of, they're going to be $50 to $100 to check it once a year. You're going to use it for 3 years, and then you're going to put a new unit in. They're going to put a different refrigerant in. You just, and you've got a set of gauges that you can't use. So it's kind of one of those deals where there's a certain amount of specific. It's actually one of the places where I say hire a pro. It's not very expensive, John, if I remember right. You generally can get put on a plan, and they'll charge you, I don't know, it's like $70 per stop. And they do it twice a year. So our opinion is
because they're going to do a whole lot of things there that you don't really want to get it. You really most of us, okay. I get myself into it, but a lot of anybody else doesn't. You're not gonna want to go do that because there are a lot of complexities to this, and it's a good thing that you hire a pro to do that.
It's one of the areas.
You're going to be a whole lot better off doing that.
Yeah, and they can actually anticipate, like they'll give you more information on how old your system is and when your potential replacement date is and things like that, and some of the other information, because of course they're going to try to upsell you on it. But that's okay, because there's still certain things that they're going to have access to knowledge, and HVAC systems are a major system in your house, pretty expensive. I mean, we're just going to cut to the chase. It's anywhere from $3,000+, and that's on a small house. $3,000+ to replace your HVAC system.
The sky's the limit.
And the sky's the limit. Just depends on size and a lot of factors that we're not going to discuss right now. But all right, anything else on changing over?
No, I think that's it. I think it's just an action tip here. I'm glad that Catherine wrote in that everybody needs to pay attention as we flip over to summer.
So speaking of that, John, we have this Facebook group at Handyman Pros. It's Facebook. Go on and go to @Handyman Pros. We ask or answer questions and things like that. That's on Facebook. You can send us an email, right? questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. Or you can go to our homepage on the handymanprosradioshow.com and leave us a voice message. There's a little button you can click up there, and it'll give us a voice message. If we get a good voice message, we're actually going to play it on the air. So you could be as famous as we are. Wow. That's exciting. So we want to thank you for listening, and we will talk to you all next week. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this podcast and have derived some value from it, here's 4 things you can do. 1, tell your friends about this podcast. 2, hit subscribe on your podcast player. While you're there, leave us a review. 3, subscribe to our newsletter by going to handymanprosradioshow.com and click on the subscribe button. We'll inform you of upcoming events, shows, and give you actionable tips for maintaining your home and property. And 4, send us an email with your questions to questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. That's handymanprosradioshow.com. That's our show for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.